creative friends, this is Joy. So I saw a video recently from 49 Dragonflies about a bullet junk journal, and she showed a journal that she created for her ephemera that just blew my mind, and I'm like, okay, I gotta make myself one of these. So I decided that I am going to make one, and that mine is nothing like what she made, so you might want to check that out. I will leave a link to her video below. Um, but this is how I decided to make mine. So I have these page protectors. I guess you could call them that, but they're not really page protectors, or because they're divided up into pockets. And I decided to go through here and pick out which ones that I want to use to make this book to put my ephemera in. So I figure if I, fold these in half, then that would be perfect to use in a book. So I got this book here, and I just making sure that it's the right size and it's going to fit. And I decided that I was going to use the cover of this book. I ended up getting like some woman had like 6 books for $1 at the flea market. So I ended up getting a bunch of books and from the flea market, and like I said, I decided this would be a good book to use for this project. So here I'm just carefully trying to cut the cover off the book so that I can use the cover to create the book that I want to create to put my ephemera in. I have a whole bunch of ephemera. It's stacked up everywhere, all over my craft room in different areas and containers, and I thought this would be a great way to actually have some of my ephemera in one location, easy to go through and look at what I have and to pull out what I want and to use in my projects. I actually have a pocket journal that I created and I've been, doing, and so this would be perfect for that. So here, since I'm folding these in half, I need the openings to these pockets to be at the top and not on the side where they're currently, so I'm cutting where I want them to open across the top. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going through and cutting each one of these open so that they open across the top instead of the side, which used to be the top. So I'm opening these up, and then I got this fuse tool from We Are Memories that is for fusing together things like this. So I'm plugging that in, and it's got like a little roller wheel thing that goes in it, and it heats up, and then you have the roller with the slit that helps you kind of fuse the pocket protector together. And then I cut off the part where it's got the holes for putting in a 3-ring binder because I don't need that anymore, so I'm cutting that off. So there you go, I have that, and I want to get it fused down the old opening. I want to fuse that together. So I'm figuring out where, exactly I need to fuse it, and I decided it would be easier if I just taped it down. That way it doesn't keep sliding all over the place. So I'm just taping that down because it's hard too to see through that ruler exactly where you have it. So I lined it up where I want to fuse it along one of those white lines, so that way it makes it easier for me to see it through that slit, and then put the roller in there and roll it through there. Now, one thing that I realized is these pocket protectors, the material that was used is a lot thicker than on most pocket protectors, number one. Number two, I did not have the tool, I don't think, heated up enough to fuse it. And number three, I had to figure out the right speed for rolling this thing to get it to fuse. So it took me a couple of tries till I figured out that, for one, it was heated up enough and for 2 I went, the right speed and over it. Like I went up and then back down really slowly, because I did realize this material that was used to make these is a lot thicker than most pocket protectors. Whereas if the material was thinner, it probably would have fused a lot quickly, more easily. So I'm just making sure that it fused, and, you know, going back over areas where it may have, not completely fused on the edges. But once I got it figured out and the tool was heated up enough, the rest of it went, you know, perfectly. I didn't have any problems with it. So here I'm just moving it over so I can get the other end of it here. And you'll see, just, went over it and was able to get it diffused the first time. Because by now, it had heated up enough, and I figured out, the right speed and whatnot to get it to fuse. So I went through and did that on all of them. I opened up, where I wanted the opening to be, and then fused the part that I, wanted, fused together and closed. So, yep, there you have it. So once I got them all done, then I had to figure out how I wanted to put them in my book. But the book cover, needed some repair, so I used my Aleene's tacky glue to try to clean that up a little bit. And plus I wanted to cover the inside of my book. I didn't want to, leave it just like this. And I have this 12 by 12 sheet of paper, and I only have one sheet, so I had to carefully cut this so that I made sure that it covered the whole thing. Luckily it worked out perfectly, because it was a 9 by 6 for the front and the back. And so I cut off 3 inches, because it's a 12 by 12. So I cut off 3 inches, so it'd be 9 by 12. And then I cut that in half, so then I had 2 9 by 6s to cover the front and the back. So it worked out perfectly. And that's for the middle. So then I realized that, the spine's really thin. I really need to reinforce it. So I just grabbed a box. I've been hoarding boxes. And you never know when they come in handy for a project. And so I got this box and decided to cut a piece of it to use on the spine to reinforce it. So I just measured out how, much, big I needed it to be, how wide and how long, and I marked that off and cut that out so I could, glue that on the inside of the spine to help reinforce it. Now, like I said, I was wanting to just use the cover as it was. I really liked it, but then I realized that the cover was damaged, and I was going to have to reinforce the outside of the cover and redo the whole thing. So I do have another video I'll be posting for that, showing you how I did that. I couldn't include it with this, because then the video would be really long. So I was going to use Aleene's tacky glue to glue this down. I couldn't get the bottle open because it was down at the last little bit. So I had to use a pair of pliers. I always keep a pair of pliers handy, because they come in handy for lots of times where the bottles are just glued shut, or, stuck, like on my jar of gesso. But I guess that was it. So then I grabbed, this is Elmer's quick dry craft glue, and decided to use that. I figured that would work pretty good. So I spread that out with my finger, and I put that piece in there and to glue it down. And I did put a book on this for, to hold it down for a little while it dried. Even though it's quick dry, it still takes a little bit of time to dry. So I did let it dry, and then once it was dry, then I came back and went over it and put on these pieces from the scrapbook paper that I wanted added. And if you're interested in seeing what I put into this book, I also have another video that I'll show you, all the things that I end up putting into it, as well as, like I said, I'll post a video on how I redid the cover of the book as well if you're interested in seeing that. And I will make sure that I add the link to the 49 Dragonflies video that I saw, where she showed the one that she created, which is even a different idea than this. This is a little bit more involved, but I really like the way it turned out, and I'm really happy with it. So here I'm just trying to smooth everything down, make sure I got everything down, and no bubbles or whatever. And I got all the edges. That's the important thing. Make sure that all the edges are glued down really well. And then I do the front cover here. Yeah, I liked this her video on doing a bullet junk journal. I'm thinking about trying that, but I'm still debating because I have just a regular bullet journal that I've been trying to keep up with during this year, and yeah, I don't know, but I really like what she does, and it's really, really neat, the decorating and stuff. So, and I only get to work on projects on the weekends, but if I do just a weekly spread every weekend, maybe, I don't know, we'll see. But this will definitely come in handy for so many other things. And it'll make it easier for me to see what I have and to, you know, get, to things more easily, pull out what I want to use in projects and stuff. So I'm really, think this is going to be handy. So I'm deciding on how I want these turned, because depending on how I turn them, you're going to have some pockets facing forward and some pockets facing backwards. So I decided to put these back to back, essentially. I had thought about, maybe adhering them together back to back, but I didn't do that. I was like, I don't really want to do that. So here I figured out how I want to put them in, but I got to measure out the holes. So I just measure the spine and then decide on where I want to put my holes, and I need to divide it like evenly. So because I need 5 sets of holes, since I'm going to have 5 signatures that I'm going to put in here. And so I start out with it where it's like 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and then divide that by 5, and then mark that on here. And you have to be extra careful with this part, because once you punch your holes, you're kind of like committed. There's no like going back. And they look kind of crooked to me. It looked like it wasn't really straight, so I had to kind of like start it over, and just because I just need to make sure, be extra careful, make sure that I got them marked out correctly. And I don't know why I put those marks at the top so far up, because I actually had to move them down, because where I'm going to put the holes is going to be like 1 inch from the top. So then once I got them marked one way, I had to figure out, how far to mark them the other way. Obviously the one in the middle, I want directly in the middle, so I marked that, and then put, a crosshatch, or, across those other marks, so that way I've got little X's or pluses or whatever you want to call it, to indicate exactly where I need to punch my holes. And then I decided, like I said, to go with 1 inch from the bottom, and then I marked that across all of those where I had marked them, and then I do the same with the top. So I'm just double checking that having the holes an inch from the top and the bottom is going to be enough, and it is. So then I mark my holes on the top, an inch from the top, and where I want those to be. So here I just redoing where those should be because I had marked it too far up. So checking again, yep, looks good. So then I got an awl and this piece of, I don't know what it is, styrofoam, I guess, that I got from some packaging, but it works perfectly for this. So I'm able to punch through the binding here and punch my holes. So I'm making sure I got my holes in there really good because I don't want to have any problems when I go to sew this with my needle not going through. So yeah, I've got them all punched in there. So then I take my first set of pages that I want to sew in here, and instead of trying to measure it all out and stuff, I just lay it on top, kind of center it and eyeball it, and then poke the holes. So easy peasy. I figured that'll work. It'll work good enough. So I tried to at first poke on the fuse where it was fused, but it was like not happening. So I had to go just right beside where the thing was fused. And then I have my string here. Not sure if it was long enough, so I had to measure it, and you need it 2 times the height for each signature. So I figured, that yes, it would be long enough to do all 5, because this is the only piece I have left of this string. So I go through the middle and then go through the top, and this is a real simple stitch. And then realized, oops, I need to erase my pencil marks now. Don't want those on there. So I go through the top and then pull the string through so that I have just a little bit of a tail left. Go through the bottom hole. And then I go back up through the middle, but make sure that I'm on the other side of the string that's going down the middle, from the tail that I left. And then I pull it tight and tie it. So I'll show you that one more time. And there I'm just checking that everything looks good. And then I snip it. So again, like I said, I just eyeball the holes on there, poke them. And these things were slippery too, trying to hold them together. They kept sliding around. Go through the middle. Pull it through till I have a tail. Go through the top. Go through the bottom. Come up through the middle on the other side. Pull it tight and tie a knot. So like I said, I was hoping to salvage the cover, but I ended up having to completely redo it all. And if you're interested in that, like I said, I'll be posting the video on that, and then it shows you like how I decorated it and added a binding, or added a clamp. So there's the damage. So here's the book, completely sewed. Thank you guys for stopping by and watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.